At St. Augustine University, they say they shape leaders, legends, and sometimes legacies soaked in sorrow. At least that's what the brochures claim. But there's one name you'll never find printed on any of them. Zahara Mbeki, the girl with a face no one could survive. She was born in a hospital in Atlanta. The lights flickered. A nurse collapsed. Then a doctor. Then a stranger in the hallway who happened to glance inside. All of them dead. No weapon, no poison. They never even saw it coming. Just a glimpse of a newborn's face. They called it a curse. Her parents called it a blessing, twisted by tragedy. And for 18 years, Zahara wrapped her face in cloth like a second skin. Not to hide, but to shield the world from the truth. But the world? The world doesn't like mystery, especially not at a place like St. Augustine, where beauty is currency and secrets are hunted. So what happens when a girl cursed with deadly beauty steps into a campus obsessed with image, status, and power? What happens when she falls in love? And someone dares to love her back? Welcome to Tales of Black, where our stories aren't always pretty, but they are powerful. Where silence is sacred, and survival? That's the real revolution. Chapter 1. Born with a Face That Kills. They didn't call it a birth. They called it a disaster waiting to happen. The story begins at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta on a Thursday night heavy with thunderstorms. The lights had flickered twice that day. Some of the nurses joked that maybe the ancestors were sending a warning. But no one was ready for what appeared at 7:16 p.m. in room 403. Her name was Zahara Mbeki. She didn't cry when she came into the world. No wrinkled forehead, no blink, no sound. She just opened her eyes, black as obsidian, unnaturally wide, too still. And in that moment, the room changed color. The first to fall was Nurse Pauline. She had just lifted Zahara to clean her off. Their eyes met for a second. Pauline gasped and dropped, dead before her knees hit the floor. Dr. Richardson rushed in. "Get security!" someone shouted. But before he could even touch the baby, his hand started shaking. His face went pale. He stumbled back and collapsed, dead. Outside the room, a janitor glanced in from the hallway window. He never stepped foot inside. He just looked and fell. 3 people, no wounds, no poison, just a glance at the face of a newborn. Later, the hospital records said, sudden cardiac arrest. But everyone in that room knew that wasn't the truth. The delivery room was sealed off. The maternity ward shut down the next morning for renovations. Security footage? Corrupted? Backup tapes? Missing. Meanwhile, in a tiny apartment on Auburn Avenue, Zahara's parents held her close. Trembling. They had seen it. They had felt it. That night, her father whispered, "Baby girl, your face, it's not normal. You're beautiful in a way this world can't survive." Her mother, a Yoruba midwife who'd immigrated from Nigeria, remained silent for 3 days. She fasted, burned sage, and prayed. Then she called an elder from their community, a man who could read bones, interpret winds, and understand things science could never explain. He came, he looked at the child, and turned pale. "Cover her face," he said before walking out. Not out of shame, but mercy. That kind of beauty? It's not for mortal eyes. And so they did. They wrapped Zahara's face in Ankara cloth, the same fabric her grandmother once hand-stitched back home. They removed every mirror from the house. No family portraits, no baby photos, just cloth and silence. At 5, Zahara asked her mother, "Mama, am I a monster?" Her mother knelt, pressed a hand against the soft fabric on her daughter's cheek, and said, "No, my love, you are a mirror, but the world isn't ready to see itself in you." By 10, Zahara was reading high school textbooks. At 15, she was secretly taking online college courses and acing every one of them. At 17, she was offered a full scholarship to St. Augustine University. one of Atlanta's most prestigious black institutions, known for raising poets, politicians, and leaders from across the nation. The night before she left, Zahara sat with her mother in the kitchen. Rain tapping on the windows. The house still as an old shrine. "What if someone sees me, Mama?" she whispered. Her mother didn't answer right away. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wooden pendant, the symbol of Osun, the Yoruba goddess of love, rivers, and sacred softness. She placed it around Zahara's neck, tightened the string, and spoke gently. "Then pray they survive, and pray harder, that you don't fall in love, because love makes people foolish, and the foolish forget to look away." That night, Zahara didn't sleep. She lay still, watching the Atlanta lights flicker through the shutters. In her hand, she clutched the same piece of cloth that had covered her since birth, and in her chest, a question pulsed, one she didn't dare speak aloud. "If my face can kill, what would my heart destroy?" The next morning, Zahara would step into the world for the first time, and the world had no idea that what was walking into St. Augustine University wasn't just a student. She was a soul born to test faith, challenge love, and shake the survival of anyone bold enough to look her in the eyes. Chapter 2. The Girl Behind the Cloth. Some people wear masks to hide what's ugly. She wore hers to hide something too beautiful, so beautiful it could kill. The gates of St. Augustine University rose like a red brick fortress in the heart of Atlanta. Ancient oaks shaded the pathways, their leaves twirling in the early autumn breeze. Students moved in waves, hoodies, headphones, backpacks bursting with ambition. Zahara stood still at the entrance. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. Her breath, slow and steady, beneath layers of dark cloth. It was a new wrap, deep brown, patterned with traditional Nigerian symbols. Wound snug around her head, it revealed only her eyes. Eyes deep and still, like an ancient well. She stepped in. No one knew who she was. But they looked. Of course they looked. A tall black girl, moving like she carried the secrets of the world, her face wrapped like she'd walked out of an old world ritual. Some whispered, some laughed, some pulled out their phones. Zahara said nothing. She walked, steadily, into the dorms, into the classrooms, into the library. She didn't hide, but she didn't let anyone near, because behind that cloth was a story the world could not bear. First class, African American Literature and Identity. Professor Kofi, a Ghanaian elder with silver hair and a voice like thunder after rain, looked at Zahara for a long moment. Then he said, "I've taught here for 25 years, and never has someone walked into my class and made it this quiet." The class chuckled. Zahara didn't. She sat down, pulled out her notebook, and wrote. Took notes, never spoke. From the back row, a girl named Lulu narrowed her eyes. Pressed curls, acrylic nails, designer bag perched on her lap. Lulu was the kind of girl who always knew she was the moment. Beautiful, rich, well-known, always in control. But Zahara, she didn't smile, didn't glance around, didn't apologize for being different. And that infuriated Lulu. She probably got burned in some freak accident. Or she's severely depressed. Maybe she's just ugly as hell. That's what Lulu whispered to her friends every time Zahara passed in silence. But not everyone was cruel. Some said, "She's always the first one in, last one out. She turns in work a week early. She's brilliant, always has the right answer, just never raises her hand." And slowly, a nickname began to ripple through campus. The girl behind the cloth. One afternoon, after class let out, Zahara stepped into the hallway and found Lulu blocking her path. "Well, well," Lulu smirked. "Finally caught you outside the lecture hall, or are you stalking me?" Zahara said nothing. Her eyes met Lulu's, still as stone. Lulu folded her arms. "What are you trying to do here? Become some campus legend? You think that cloth makes you mysterious?" Zahara's voice was quiet, measured. "I don't need to be mysterious, I just want to be left alone." Lulu scoffed. "Then stop dressing like a damn witch. If you're not ugly, take it off. I dare you." Zahara didn't flinch. "It's not that I'm afraid to. I'm keeping you alive." The hallway stilled. Lulu's friends laughed, thinking it was some dark sarcasm. But Lulu felt a chill run up her spine, because Zahara's eyes, when she said it, weren't joking. That night, back in her dorm room, Zahara sat by the window. Golden light spilled across the open book in her lap. Beneath the cloth, her voice whispered like wind through leaves. "Every day here is a test. Can I stay strong enough to wear this mask forever? Or will someone make me forget, just long enough to kill them?" She didn't know, but one thing she did. At St. Augustine, where everyone wanted to be seen, she was the only one praying to disappear. Chapter 3. Welcome to St. Augustine. Not everyone gets chosen to walk through these gates, but not everyone who enters walks out whole. St. Augustine University wasn't made for the ordinary. A school with over 150 years of legacy, founded by Black pastors and scholars in the post-slavery era. A place that once taught men and women who became senators, poets, civil rights leaders, and legends whose names were never written in books. The iron gates bore an old Latin phrase, "Lux in tenebris," light in darkness. Zahara read those words every day as she passed through. And she knew. Light doesn't always save. Sometimes, light can kill. On campus, Zahara remained a question mark. No one knew her story. Where she came from. How she got in. All they knew, she topped every class, turned in assignments early, and never spoke more than 2 sentences to anyone. One day, in the grand auditorium, a freshman orientation was held. The university's president, Dr. Claudine Brooks, took the stage. A powerful black woman with silver hair pulled back tight. Her voice rang across the wooden podium like a bronze bell. "You are the chosen generation. Chosen not just for your grades, but for your potential to redefine our community. Remember, at St. Augustine, you don't just learn, you build legacy." Applause erupted. Zahara sat in the last row, head slightly bowed. She didn't care about legacy. She just wanted to live without killing anyone. Up front, Lulu crossed her legs and leaned toward her friend. "Where's Scarf Girl? Too scared of the stage lights?" Her friend whispered back, "Nope, back row, still in black, still silent, still no one dares sit near her." Lulu glanced sideways, and for the first time, she felt her title as Most Watched starting to slip. After the speech, students were divided into groups for campus tours. Zahara didn't sign up. She wandered on her own. The old library, where sunlight poured through stained glass like sad rainbows. The philosophy hall, where unanswered questions floated like ghosts above the ceiling. The hall of alumni, lined with portraits of proud black graduates, framed stories of the past. She moved through them all, like a quiet shadow. What she didn't know was that someone had noticed her, not with envy, but with something else. That afternoon, Zahara stood reading the scholarship board when a gentle voice spoke behind her. "You're in Professor Kofi's class, right?" She turned, nodded slightly. His name was Omari Benton. Deep brown skin, kind, steady eyes, tall and lean, with round glasses that framed his calm. Not the kind of guy who turned heads at parties, but the kind who made you feel safe sitting next to him. "You always turn in work first," Omari said. "Professor keeps using your essays as examples. Makes me hustle just to keep up." Zahara answered plainly, "I just like to get things done. And done well." Omari smiled. "I'm Omari." She gave a nod. "Zahara." Omari didn't ask about the cloth, didn't stare, didn't offer pity, just greeted her as if she was normal. Zahara turned to leave. But for the first time at St. Augustine, she didn't feel like she was carrying weight. She felt a little peace. That night, back in her dorm, Zahara stood before a small mirror, the only one she ever kept, always face down. She didn't look at herself, just stared at the cloth. Her fingers trembled as they reached for the knot, then stopped, not because she feared someone else might see her, but because, for the first time, She feared that she wanted to be seen. Chapter 4. The Bully Who Awakened the Curse. She didn't know what she was provoking was a volcano that had learned how to be quiet. At St. Augustine, Lulu had never had to share the spotlight. Not in the halls, not in the classroom, not online. Then came Zahara. Silent, unafraid of the spotlight, which somehow made all of it turn toward her, like a slow, irresistible tide. And Lulu couldn't stand it. A girl who didn't talk, didn't dress trendy, didn't chase attention. And yet the whole campus was whispering about her. Who does she think she is? On a Wednesday afternoon, Lulu decided to strike. She and a few of her friends walked straight to the table where Zahara sat reading in the courtyard. Not many of them, just enough to form a wall of pressure. Lulu leaned on the table. "Hey, Zahara, I've got a little question." Zahara didn't look up. Her voice was calm. "I'm reading, ask later." Lulu smirked, still standing there. "Oh, sorry for bothering the school's genius, but I think we're all dying to know. What's under that scarf? A burn? Or maybe nothing at all?" Lulu's friends giggled. Zahara closed her book. Her eyes rose, not angry, not shaken, just deep and quiet. "I don't keep the scarf on because I'm afraid of being ugly," she said, slow and clear. "I wear it because I don't want anyone to die." The sentence sliced the air. Cold. Precise. No drama needed. Lulu froze for half a second, then burst out laughing. "Oh my God, what is this? Some bad horror movie? So what, you kill people with your face? You're some kind of beauty assassin?" Zahara didn't answer. A breeze passed through. Oak leaves drifted to the cement. The air turned cold. Not from the weather, but from the stillness in Zahara's gaze. "I warned you," she said, "but some people don't listen until it's too late." That night, Lulu couldn't sleep. Not out of fear, out of anger. She'd been humiliated, not by shouting, not by fists, but by the calm of a girl who didn't need to raise her voice to make everyone around her feel small. And Lulu made a vow she would make Zahara take off that scarf, in front of everyone, no matter what it took. The next morning, a guy named Tafari got invited for coffee. Tafari was well known on campus. Tall, good-looking, on the basketball team, smart enough not to fail, and always a little short on cash. Lulu crossed her legs, smiled like a game show host, and said, "I have a simple offer." Tafari raised an eyebrow. "Not one of those fake dating pranks, right?" "No," Lulu said. "All I need is this. Get close to Zahara, be friendly, build some trust, and one day when she's sleeping or not paying attention, pull off that scarf, take a photo, send it to me. That's it." Tafari burst out laughing. "She doesn't exactly scream easy to approach." "You're hot," Lulu shrugged. "She's lonely. She'll take the bait." "And if she actually is dangerous?" he asked. Lulu leaned in, voice low. "You believe that nonsense? No one dies from beauty. People die from being stupid." Tafari stared at her and nodded. The deal was sealed with a grin, and a thick envelope slipped into his jacket. The next day, Tafari started showing up near Zahara at the library, pretending to read the same books, asking fake questions, showing fake interest. Zahara stayed guarded, but Tafari's eyes, though deceptive, had a way of making people feel seen. And for the first time, she let someone get just a little closer. What Zahara didn't know was that she had just opened the door for a nightmare to step in. And what Tafari didn't know was that he was about to see something no one had ever seen and lived to talk about. Chapter 5. The Boy Who Died from a Glance. Some secrets aren't meant to be uncovered. They're meant to be respected. Tafari never understood that. And he never got the chance to regret it. It all started like a scene from a school play. Tafari approached Zahara like a gentle breeze. It began with simple questions about class. Accidental run-ins at the library. Peppermint tea left carefully on her table. Nothing too eager, nothing too forced. Just enough to make a lonely girl believe she'd found a friend. Zahara started to open up. Not with words, but with a softer gaze. a voice that had lost some of its cold edges, and a smile, still hidden beneath the cloth, but alive in her eyes. Omari noticed. He watched from a distance, often fading into the shade of a tree. He never spoke to Zahara, and Zahara never realized the one person who never tried to get close was the only one who never looked away. One Friday night, Tafari invited Zahara to study in his dorm. "No one will bother us," he said. "My roommate's out tonight." Zahara hesitated, then nodded. She was tired of questioning everything. Just once, she thought, let me trust. She came, carrying books and fragile hope. They studied. He asked, she explained. He pretended not to understand. So she'd lean in, stay longer, share more. Then Tafari smiled. "I made tea, your favorite." Zahara was touched. "You noticed?" "A little?" He grinned, handing her the cup. She didn't know. It held the white powder Lulu gave him. Just a mild sedative. Enough to make her sleep through. The fall of the cloth. 15 minutes later, her eyelids grew heavy. "I feel sleepy," she murmured. "Maybe just tired." Tafari nodded, voice gentle. "Rest, I'll clean up." She lay down on the couch, book still clutched in her hand. Within minutes, she drifted into sleep. Tafari waited, counting her breaths. When he was sure, he moved. Hands trembling, heart pounding. He knew it was wrong. But the envelope in his pocket and Lulu's mocking laughter in his mind pushed him forward. He reached for the first knot, unfastened it. The cloth loosened and fell to the wooden floor like a feather on the wind. Then he saw her face. It wasn't beauty in the way the world understood it. Not like models, not like actresses. It was something else, something otherworldly. A face that didn't belong to this earth. No flaw, no imbalance. Every line, perfection. So perfect, it became terrifying. Tafari stumbled back. One step, then two. Then his entire body began to shake. His heartbeat raced, then skipped, then slowed. He clutched his chest, collapsed. His mouth opened, as if to call a name, but no sound came. He died before he understood what was killing him. 10 minutes later, Zahara stirred. She sat up suddenly, head spinning. Her scarf was on the floor. She turned. Tafari lay there, eyes wide open, motionless. Zahara crawled over, shaking his shoulders. No, please, not like this." But his body was already cold. She wrapped the scarf back around her face with shaking hands. Tears spilled down her cheeks, hidden beneath the fabric. "You weren't supposed to look. I warned you. I didn't want to hurt anyone again." Her cries faded into the brick walls. And down the hall, a student passing by heard the sound. 5 minutes later, sirens blared. Police arrived. Yellow tape stretched across the door. Students crowded the hallway, filming, whispering, speculating. Inside the room, Zahara sat curled in the corner, knees to her chest, eyes downcast. A detective asked, "Were you the last person with the victim?" Zahara nodded. "He saw my face. That was enough." "You kidding me?" She shook her head. "No one's ever seen my face. And lived. They couldn't charge her. No wounds, no poison, no weapon." The autopsy read, "Cause of death, sudden cardiac arrest of unknown origin." Zahara was released, but she knew the truth. Once again, she had survived. And someone else hadn't. Chapter 6. Omari's Silent Love. He never tried to see my face. He just sat beside me. And somehow, that was more magical than love. News of Tafari's death spread faster than wildfire. The campus panicked. Reporters swarmed in. Social media exploded with theories. Was it the girl in the scarf? They say she's a witch. If the cops can't find a cause, she must have done something. Zahara became the center of every gaze. She wasn't charged, but she was convicted. By looks alone, Lulu went quiet. She never expected that a plan meant to humiliate Zahara would lead to someone actually dying. And deep inside her, fear began to grow roots. Omari heard the news while studying in the library. He didn't say a word, just packed his books, stood up, and walked quietly to the women's dorm. He stood beneath the window, Not calling, not texting, just looking up at the third floor, where a soft light glowed. Moments later, the window creaked open. Zahara looked down. She didn't speak, didn't signal, just met his eyes. And in that silence, amidst the rumors, the fear, the chaos, there were only two people, and one thing that connected them: a trust that didn't need proof. The next day, Zahara returned to class. Everyone looked at her like she was a ticking bomb. Some avoided her, some filmed her, some whispered, "Why is she even allowed back here?" She walked into the lecture hall like she was stepping through blades, took her usual seat in the back. No one sat near her, except one. Omari. He entered, set his bag down, and sat right beside her like nothing had happened. Zahara turned to him, her voice barely above a breath. "You're not afraid of me?" Omari looked into her eyes. The only part of her the world was still allowed to see. "No," he said, "because I'm not here to see your face." From that day forward, Omari showed up beside Zahara more often. He didn't ask questions, didn't pry, didn't try to win her over. He just was there, a quiet shelter in a storm. He brought her books from the back of the library she'd never noticed, left cheese bread on her desk when she skipped breakfast, even saved her a seat in class every morning, without asking for a thank you. Zahara didn't understand it. She wasn't used to being given anything without something being expected in return. One rainy afternoon, they found shelter beneath the library's back awning. Cold wind, dripping rooftops. Neither said a word, until Zahara asked, "Why are you kind to me?" Omari shrugged. "I'm not trying to be kind. I'm just staying near someone who makes me want to be better." She looked away. Her hands trembled slightly beneath the scarf. "You don't know me," she whispered. "I'm not easy to be around. I've killed before. I can kill again." Omari didn't flinch. "You haven't killed anyone. The pain you carry, it's not a weapon, it's a chain." Zahara went quiet. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Not from sorrow, but because, for the first time, someone saw her and didn't look away. That night, in her dorm room, Zahara pulled out a blank journal, one she'd never written in. She opened to the first page and wrote, "Today, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a curse. I felt human." The next day, she brought Omari a cup of hot cocoa. Not to say thank you, not to return a favor, but to say, I've started to want a normal life, because someone believed I deserved one. Chapter 7. Kiss me, even if it kills you. If the price of love is death, then at least let me die while loving you. Omari invited Zahara to the small apartment he rented just outside campus. It was quiet, filled with the scent of old wood, vinyl records stacked by the wall, a worn armchair, and a bookshelf that nearly kissed the ceiling. Zahara stood at the door, hesitant. Her fingers clenched the edge of her scarf. Reflexive, protective. Omari opened the door with a warm smile. "Just music, banana bread, and you ranting about how much you hate probability. Nothing scary." She stepped in. They sat on the floor around a low wooden tea table. On the plate, banana bread baked by Omari's own hands. On the speakers, Nina Simone's voice floated like a ghost in love. "I put a spell on you, 'cause you're mine." Zahara looked around. Here, she wasn't stared at, wasn't called a monster, wasn't judged. She was just herself with a boy who didn't ask too much. "I used to think I'd go my whole life without ever sitting next to someone," she said. "Now, I'm scared I've found someone." Omari placed his hand on the table. Not touching hers, just near. "Scared of what?" "Scared that if someone really sees me, they won't survive it." Omari stayed silent for a moment, then said, "If loving you means risking everything, I accept that. Not because I'm reckless, but because I believe some faces aren't meant to be looked at. They're meant to be understood." Zahara lowered her head. Tears slipped down her cheeks, soaking into the fabric that still shielded her. "No one's ever said that to me before," she whispered. Night passed slowly. Zahara drifted to sleep in the armchair. Soft lamp glow. Music faded. Omari didn't touch her. He just sat nearby, watching over her sleep like one guards a wound that's still learning how to heal. Then, Zahara shifted. Her scarf loosened and slid from her cheek. She didn't notice. For the first time, her face was exposed beneath the ceiling light, in front of someone who didn't die. Omari froze, his breath caught, his heart beat wildly, but he didn't look away. Not out of lust, not even fascination, but to prove he wasn't there for her beauty. He was there for her? Zahara woke, saw the scarf on the floor, saw Omari, her eyes widened. "No," she gasped, panic rising. "You saw me!" She backed away, hit the bookshelf. "I have to call someone, get help, call an ambulance." But Omari was still standing, not collapsed, not convulsing, not breathless. He stepped forward, slowly, and wrapped his arms around her. "I'm still here, Zahara," she wept. "Don't you feel it? Don't you feel your heart breaking?" He smiled. "No, only beating faster," she whispered. "You're insane," he whispered back. "I'm in love with you." Then he leaned in and kissed her. Not like in the movies, not like in fairy tales, but like two people who knew they weren't supposed to survive the moment, and chose it anyway. After all the years of hiding, all the miles she spent running, for the first time, Zahara didn't feel like a curse. She felt like a girl. Seen, loved, and no one had to die for it. Chapter 8. A curse that only needed love to break. Not every curse needs a sorcerer to lift it. Some curses just need someone brave enough to love you, even when you've never loved yourself. Zahara didn't sleep that night. After the kiss, after revealing her face, after realizing Omari was still alive, she sat in silence by the apartment window for hours. Her heart was louder than any sound in the room. She didn't speak. Omari didn't ask. He just sat beside her, his hand gently holding hers, as if presence alone was all the magic she needed. At sunrise, Zahara returned home, back to her mother's old apartment, the place where she'd grown up among folded cloths and whispered warnings. "Never take off the scarf." Her mother stood in the kitchen, quietly waving sage over fire. Zahara's voice barely broke the air. "Mama, I took the scarf off." Her mother froze. She didn't turn, didn't speak, only let the white smoke rise, like a prayer still forming. "A boy saw my face," Zahara continued. "He didn't die." Her mother turned, in her eyes, shock, tears, and a relief too deep to hold back. "His name is Omari," Zahara whispered. "He kissed me. He's still alive. And he loves me." Her mother led her to the back room, a room filled with the memories of candlelight and childhood silence. She opened an old wooden chest, locked with nothing but a strand of red thread. Inside, a faded piece of parchment, handwritten in black ink, Yoruba script, with an English translation beneath, in her mother's own pen. "This is the prophecy," she said softly. "You were born under the blessing and trial of Osun. Your beauty is too radiant, and light that burns too bright can scorch those who don't have enough love to see beneath it." Zahara read the lines, her hands trembling, eyes wet. "The curse shall fade when the girl is seen by eyes that love beyond desire, and touched by lips that kiss with no demand." Zahara's voice cracked. "It's real. Everything you ever said was real." Her mother nodded. "You were never cursed. You were challenged. Because only when someone loves you without needing your mask, your body, or your approval, only then will you know. You are not dangerous. You are someone who carries light." Zahara collapsed into her mother's arms. "I've lived in fear for so long." "But you've loved," her mother whispered, stroking her hair. "And that's the bravest thing you've ever done." That night, Zahara returned to her dorm. She stood in front of her mirror. For the first time, she turned it up, no longer facing it down, no longer turning away. She saw herself, that face, unchanged, still stunning, still unreal. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She saw herself through Omari's eyes. Eyes that didn't judge, didn't want, didn't flinch. And in that reflection, she saw freedom. The next morning, she wrote a single line in her journal. "If love is the key, then I've held it my whole life. I just never dared to use it." Chapter 9. The day I stepped out of the darkness. Some people were born to be hidden, and some were born to rise from the dark when the world is finally ready to see with its heart, not its eyes. It was a Monday. Campus buzzed like any other day. Students poured into lecture halls, lattes in hand, earbuds in place, backpacks bouncing. But something quiet stirred in the air, a question. "Oh, it's the midterm graduation ceremony today. I heard a student's been invited to speak. Is it Zahara?" Zahara walked into campus like she always did. But this time, there was no scarf, no dark cloth shielding her cheeks, no barrier between her and the sunlight. Just a black girl with a beauty that made the whole world pause. And for the first time, the stares weren't full of suspicion. They were stunned, silent, then slowly reverent. Someone dropped their phone. Someone else raised a hand to their mouth. Another froze, unsure what to say. Lulu sat with her usual circle, chewing gum, scrolling through her phone, until she saw Zahara. She choked. Her jaw locked, her back straightened. Zahara walked toward her. Slow, steady. Her eyes didn't hide. Her voice was calm, just loud enough. But every word shattered the pride in front of her like waves breaking against a brittle wall. "You once wanted the whole school to see my face. Well, look. But remember, not everyone is strong enough to survive what they see. I hope you are." Lulu didn't reply. For the first time, she had no words, because she knew she'd lost, not in a rivalry, but in life. Inside the auditorium, Zahara was called to the stage. She stood at the mic. Hundreds of students watched. Even professors, some of whom had once avoided her gaze, looked up. Zahara breathed in, then spoke. "I'm not here to talk about grades. I'm here to talk about fear. The kind of fear you carry when you hold something inside you that others can't handle, whether it's beauty, brilliance, or just being different. I spent most of my life hiding because I believed that if people saw me, they would die. And some did." The room fell completely silent. But then I realized I didn't kill them. Their curiosity, their selfishness, their fear did that. All I ever wanted was to live. One breath, one tear, not from grief, but from finally being allowed to speak. There was one person who saw me and didn't die, because he didn't see with his eyes. He saw me with faith, and that saved me. When she stepped down, the room stood. No announcement, no cue, just hundreds of people rising, together, and clapping. Omari stood in the front row, eyes wet. He didn't run to the stage. He didn't need to. He placed a hand over his heart. A silent thank you, because Zahara didn't die in fear. She lived because of love. After the ceremony, a freshman girl walked up to Zahara. Tiny, thick glasses, voice trembling. "Zahara, I used to think I had to hide too. But today, because of you, I know I don't have to anymore." Zahara hugged the girl, as if she were hugging the younger version of herself. A child who once feared the light, but who had now become it. Chapter 10. I was never the curse. I was the test. They thought I was a curse, but really, I was just a mirror. And they only died because they couldn't face themselves. 3 years had passed. St. Augustine University held a special ceremony, a celebration honoring students who had made lasting impact on the Black community nationwide. On stage that day, Zahara wore a deep indigo graduation robe, hand-stitched with the symbol of Osun over her heart. Her face uncovered, her gaze unapologetic, her smile unafraid. She was no longer the girl behind the cloth. Now everyone called her by her full name, Zahara Mbeki, the girl who once took lives with a glance, now helping others find the courage to live with themselves. During the ceremony, the announcer read her introduction aloud. She came to St. Augustine not with fame, but with silence. And in that silence, she forced us to listen to something we'd never dared to hear before. That sometimes, what scares us the most is not the monster, but the light. In the front row, Lulu sat quietly. No entourage, no designer purse, just a pair of eyes, watching Zahara. And for the first time, Lulu didn't feel envy. She felt respect. After the ceremony, a 12-year-old girl from the nearby middle school walked up to Zahara. She wore a wig. A surgical mask covered most of her face. Zahara knelt down. The girl spoke, barely above a whisper. "They call me a monster because of this big birthmark on my face. But today I saw you, and I think maybe I'm a test too." Zahara didn't say anything. She just pulled the girl into a tight embrace. "None of us are curses," she said softly. "We're just questions posed to the people around us. Questions like, can you love someone, even if they're not perfect?" That night, Zahara returned to the apartment she now shared with Omari. He was in the kitchen, cooking rice. She walked up behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist, and rested her cheek against his back. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, "I want you to promise me something." "What?" he asked. "Promise me. You'll always see me the way you did that first night, without needing my face, without needing promises, just staying." Omari turned around, touched his forehead to hers. "I'll stay, even if you disappear into the dark again, because I love you. Not because you were dangerous, but because you dared to love yourself after everything." And so Zahara kept living, not to prove she was never the curse, but to remind the world she had never been the curse. She was the test, and those who passed it were the ones worthy of the light she carried. You are not a curse. You are the test, to see who's brave enough to love a soul that was never given permission to live as itself. Some people aren't born to be understood. They're born to teach the world how to love again. Zahara didn't come here to be saved. She saved herself. Through love, through tears, through the courage to step out from the cloth that buried her for most of her childhood. And if you, even once in your life, have ever felt the need to hide a part of yourself just to be accepted, then this story was written for you. You are not alone. You are not strange. You are an invitation for others to learn how to see with their hearts. If this story touched something in you, leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long, just one line. "I'm still learning how to step out of the dark." Because here, at Tales of Black, we tell the stories others tried to bury, not to hurt anyone, but to give voice to those who've lived in silence for far too long. Subscribe so you don't miss the stories still waiting to be told. Turn on the bell to hear them the moment they arrive. And if you believe someone out there needs this light, share this story with them, because maybe one story can save a life.